You woke the humans. The words hang in the chamber like a death sentence. Counselor Zethrax's voice, usually measured and diplomatic, cracks with undisguised horror. The elegant, crystalline dome of the 4000-year-old Galactic Council, chamber destined to amplify wisdom and foster peaceful deliberation, amplifies panic as his announcement registers. 3,000 delegates representing over 700 species freeze. Then chaos erupts. Impossible, shouts a tentacled Vortex representative, multiple appendages flailing. The quarantine systems were designed to last 10 millennia. The containment protocols, begins another voice. Are they already armed? Interrupts a third. Zethrax, his scaled skin paling to a sickly blue, raises all four hands for silence. The senior Prilorian diplomat's famed composure has vanished, replaced by the rigid posture of one delivering catastrophic news. Preliminary reports confirm that approximately 73 humans have been awakened from suspended animation, he states, activating the central holodisplay. The breach occurred 12 standard hours ago at Preservation Facility 42, located in the region humans once called North America. The triggering entity was Luna, a junior archaeologist conducting unauthorized research. The chamber's lighting dims as security footage appears above them. A young female Prilorian in research gear examines what appears to be a simple control panel in an underground facility. Her curious fingers press a sequence of buttons. Warning lights flash. The chamber stirs with horrified murmurs as the footage shows a hibernation pod hissing open, revealing a human male inside. The first awakened subject is Nathan Sullivan, age 34 at time of containment, military engineer specializing in defensive technologies, Zethrax continues, his voice dropping, and he has accessed the facility's central systems. The footage shifts to show the human tall, lean, moving with unsettling purpose, systematically activating additional pods according to some predetermined sequence. Each newly awakened human is quickly briefed by Sullivan, then assigned tasks with military precision. How did this happen? Demands the Arcturian Chancellor, her crystalline form vibrating with stress frequencies. Earth was erased from all charts. The entire solar system quarantined with our most advanced technology. We underestimated them, whispers an ancient delegate from the back rows, one of the few old enough to remember the original containment vote. Again, Zethrax nods grimly. 3,000 years ago, this council deemed humans too dangerous for integration into galactic society. Despite their rudimentary technology, they exhibited unprecedented adaptability, refused submission to superior forces, and demonstrated alarming talent for weapons development. Their reverse engineering capabilities threatened to destabilize power structures across 17 sectors. On the display, Sullivan's group has accessed a hidden weapons vault. The humans move with coordinated efficiency that sends chills through the assembly. Rather than commit genocide against 11 billion sentients, we opted for hibernation, Zethrax reminds them. We thought it merciful. New footage, the young archaeologist, huddled in a maintenance crawlspace, recording an emergency transmission. They know I'm here, she whispers, terror evident in her wide eyes. Sullivan discovered the communication array. He's organizing them into strike teams. They've activated defense protocols we didn't know existed. I think they've been, she looks up sharply. Someone's coming, help us, please. The transmission cuts. The solar destruction protocols, a delegate suggests quietly. We must use them before they escape the containment zone. Murmurs of agreement ripple through the chamber, but Zethrax raises a hand. The humans appear to have anticipated this contingency. Sullivan has already disabled the primary trigger mechanism, and he pauses, voice dropping further. Luna's last transmission indicates Sullivan is now approaching her position. His intentions remain unknown. The council chamber falls silent as the weight of their situation settles upon them. 3,000 years ago, they put humans to sleep rather than face them. Now the humans are waking up. The footage of Luna cuts to black, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. For 3 millennia, they had slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that humanity was safely contained, a problem solved by their ancestors. Now that certainty crumbled before them. How many other preservation facilities exist on Earth? Asks the Arcturian Chancellor, her crystalline form now pulsing with deep crimson alarm frequencies. Zithrax interfaces with the central database. 17 major facilities housing approximately 10 million humans each, if Sullivan has indeed accessed the central systems. Then we face potential mass awakening, finishes the ancient delegate who had spoken earlier. The containment initiative is compromised. New data streams into the Council's display. Zithrax's eyes widen. We've established limited surveillance within the facility. We can observe Sullivan's movements. The holodisplay shifts, revealing Nathan Sullivan standing in the preservation facility's main armory. Around him cluster 24 humans of various ages, their faces a mixture of confusion and commitment. The facility's fluorescent lights flicker overhead, casting harsh shadows across weapon racks holding technology that appears to have been in development when humanity was placed in stasis. Sullivan grabs a plasma rifle and addresses the group, his voice transmitted with surprising clarity through the Council's audio systems. I don't care if you were police, military, or a damn mall security guard before they put us to sleep, he announces, his voice reverberating through the concrete chamber as he distributes the weapons. Today, we're all soldiers. Those aliens out there, the Prilorians, they took everything from us. 3,000 years of our history erased. The Council watches as a middle-aged woman with short gray hair steps forward, her stance suggesting authority despite the circumstances. That's Dr. Alina Reed, Zithrax identifies, former leading xenobiologist from their academic institution called Harvard. I was a Zenobio doctor, Dr. Reed says on screen. Are you absolutely certain the Prilorians are hostile? Perhaps if we attempted communication. Sullivan cuts her off with a sharp blow to a metal locker, the sound making several council delegates flinch. I access the facility's archives, Sullivan growls. They put 11 billion humans into hibernation against our will. They quarantined our entire solar system like we're a disease. And now that we're awake, the protocols our Clerthial sterilize this planet rather than let us rejoin the galactic community. Murmurs ripple through the council chamber. The Vordax representative's tentacles twist nervously. The human has correctly interpreted the containment failure response protocols. Our contingency plans are compromised. Switch to Luna's location, Zithrax commands. The display shifts. Luna flattens herself against a wall, her iridescent scales shifting from their natural blue to a camouflaging gray. Her breathing comes in short bursts as footsteps approach her hiding place. She grips her communication device, frantically adjusting settings in an attempt to boost her signal. The council collectively tenses as a small human rounds the corner of a female child with tangled blonde hair who stops abruptly at the sight of Luna. You're one of them, the child states simply. The aliens who put us to sleep. Luna kneels, making herself smaller. My name is Luna. I didn't put anyone to sleep. I was born long after that happened. I'm an archaeologist. I study old things to learn about the past. The young one approaches an alien without fear, observes the empathic Confederation's representative, its translucent body pulsing with curious light patterns. Note this behavior. I'm Mia, the child says, advancing with cautious steps. My pod woke me up 2 days ago. Everyone's scared and angry. That man, Nathan, says we need to fight back. Luna's scales pulse with visible anxiety. Mia, fighting will only make things worse. The council is afraid of humans because they don't understand you. I need to reach them, explain that awakening you was an accident, that you're not the threat they believe you are. We observe this transmission in real time, yet Luna believes she cannot reach us. Questions a reptilian delegate from the Outer Rim sectors. The facility's walls contain signal-dampening materials, Zethrax explains. Our monitoring systems can receive, but Luna's personal transmitter cannot penetrate the barriers. She doesn't know we can see and hear her. Delegate Vorn of the Martial Alliance rises from his seat, his exoskeleton clicking as he gestures emphatically. This is precisely why the quarantine protocol was implemented. 3,000 years ago, humans advanced from primitive combustion engines to rudimentary interstellar travel in less than 2 centuries. Their adaptability makes them unpredictable. The empathic confederation's representative pulses with disagreement. We have evolved beyond such fear. These humans have just awakened to find their civilization effectively erased. Their defensive posture is understandable. Zethrax raises a forefingered hand for silence just as an aide rushes to him with a data crystal. The council watches as he interfaces with it, his facial ridges paling to ashen gray. The humans have accessed the facility's deep communication array, he announces, voice tight with strain. They've broadcast a revival signal to other preservation facilities across Earth. Conservative estimates indicate we may have over 10,000 awakened humans within the next solar cycle. The council erupts in renewed panic. On the display, the scene shifts again to Sullivan leading his armed group through sterile corridors, their boots echoing against metal floors. Security systems activate in their pathautomated barriers. Containment fields, but Sullivan disables each one with practiced precision. Once we secure the communications hub, Sullivan tells his followers as they advance, we'll broadcast the revival codes to every facility on Earth. Then we'll access the defense systems. If these Prilorians want to finish what they started, they'll find out we're not going back to sleep without a fight. He doesn't realize we're watching, observes the ancient delegate. He doesn't know the revival signal has already been sent. The display splits, showing Luna and Mia reaching the communications hub. Luna's fingers dance across the control panel, activating a direct transmission channel. Please understand, she records, her voice trembling. These humans are scared, not inherently violent. I've made first contact with a child named Mia. They're capable of empathy and reason. Implement Diplomatic Protocol 7, not Containment Failure Response. I repeat, these humans can be allies if we approach them with the door slides open. Sullivan and his group enter, weapons raised. Luna turns, positioning herself protectively in front of Mia. The transmission continues to broadcast to the council chamber. Step away from the controls, Sullivan orders, his plasma rifle aimed at Luna's chest. Luna raises her hand slowly. I'm Luna. I'm the archaeologist who accidentally awakened you. I mean no harm. Sullivan's teeth grit. You're Prilorian. Your people decided 11 billion humans needed to be put in storage like outdated equipment. That decision was made 3,000 years ago, Luna answers, keeping her voice steady despite the weapons trained on her. I had nothing to do with it. I only wanted to learn about Earth's history. Nathan, Mia speaks up, she's trying to help us. She told them not to hurt us. Sullivan's eyes narrow. Told who? Who is she communicating with? The Galactic Council, Luna explains, her scales rippling with stress patterns. The governing body that oversees this sector of the galaxy. They're watching us right now, trying to decide what to do. In the council chamber, Zethrax leans forward. This confrontation will determine our response. If Sullivan harms Luna, execute the containment failure response immediately, the Vordak's representative insists. No, counters the empathic Confederation's representative. Let us observe how the human responds to this diplomatic opportunity. On the display, Sullivan keeps his weapon trained on Luna, but his eyes flick to the transmission equipment. You're telling me the aliens who imprisoned our species are watching us right now, hearing everything we say? Yes, Luna confirms, and I'm asking Theme and Yudo choose dialogue over violence. Sullivan steps closer, his weapon still raised. Then I have a message for them. The council chamber falls silent as Sullivan stares directly at Luna, unaware that his next words will shape the fate of two species. The council chamber falls silent as Sullivan stares directly at Luna, his plasma rifle still trained on her chest. Time seems to freeze in the communications hub. Luna's scales shift from their camouflaging gray to a pale yellow, a physiological response revealing her fear. Behind her, Mia's small hands clutch at Luna's robes, the child's eyes wide with fear not for herself, but for her alien protector. "Step away from the human child," Sullivan demands, his voice steady despite the visible conflict in his eyes. The armed humans behind him shift nervously, weapons raised and ready. The communications panel continues its active transmission to the Galactic Council, capturing every word, every movement of this pivotal encounter. In the council chamber, the delegates watch with collective tension as the scene unfolds. Many had expected immediate violence confirmation of everything their historical records documented about human aggression. Instead, they witness a human child defending an alien. The child appears protective of our archaeologist, the empathic Confederation's representative notes, its translucent body pulsing with rapid light patterns that eye Dr. Kate's surprise. "Doctor." Alina Reed pushes past Sullivan, lowering her weapon. Her eyes move from Luna to Mia and back again. "She's protecting a child, Nathan. Our child," Reed says, her voice cutting through the tension. "Does that look like the action of an enemy?" Sullivan's teeth clench at it. His military training battles visibly with something deeper, his innate humanity. The other humans exchange uncertain glances. One by one, they lower their weapons, recognizing the contradiction between their expectations and the reality before them. After a long moment, Sullivan lowers his rifle. His eyes never leave Luna's face. "Explain yourself," he says, his voice less hostile but no less intense. "Why are you here? Why did you wake us?" Luna's scales gradually shift from pale yellow back toward their natural blue as the immediate threat diminishes. She keeps one hand protectively on Mia's shoulder. "I'm an archaeologist, as I said. I came to study Earth artifacts," Luna explains, her voice steadying. "The awakening was accidental. I disturbed dormant systems while examining the facility's historical records." "You expect us to believe you just happened to wake up 11 billion humans by accident?" Sullivan asks, skepticism evident. "Not all at once," Luna clarifies. "The initial system failure was isolated to this facility, but when you access the central controls and broadcast the revival codes..." Sullivan nods, understanding. "We triggered the mass awakening ourselves." In another section of the preservation facility, Commander Marcus Hayes leads a small team through sterile corridors. His face shows the weathered experience of Special Forces training, eyes constantly scanning for threats as they reach a heavily secured door. "This is it," says Specialist Jang, consulting a facility map on her tablet. "Defense Control Center." Hayes places his palm on the scanner. The system hesitates before recognizing his preserved biometric signature and granting access. "Jackpot," Hayes whispers as the room illuminates, revealing banks of dormant control interfaces. His team spreads out, activating systems with practiced efficiency. On the main display, a three-dimensional representation of Earth appears, surrounded by hundreds of small triangular markers. "What are those?" asks Corporal Mendez, pointing to the markers. Hayes studies the display. "Automated quarantine platforms. They've had us in a cage for 3,000 years. His fingers move across the controls with deliberate precision. "Let's level the playing field." Dormant defense satellites activate around the planet, a protective grid forming without Sullivan's knowledge or authorization. Status indicators shift from red to green as ancient human defensive systems come online. Back in the communications hub, Luna sits Dr. Cross from Sullivan and Dr. Reed, with Mia beside her. The child hasn't left the alien side, a fact not lost on anyone present. The armed humans maintain a watchful perimeter, but the immediate hostility has given way to tense curiosity. The quarantine wasn't implemented merely because of human violence potential, Luna explains, her scales shifting to a deeper blue that indicates concentration. Your species advanced in decades what took others centuries. From primitive combustion engines to rudimentary interstellar travel in less than 2 centuries, this rapid development threatened to destabilize the carefully maintained balance of power among older species. So Dr. too smart for our own good, Dr. Reed observes with bitter irony. Luna continues, the political faction that ordered the quarantine no longer holds power, but the fear of humanity remains ingrained in galactic culture. As Luna speaks, Mia unexpectedly rises from her seat. The adults fall silent as the child walks to Sullivan, takes his hand, and then places it in Luna's forefingered grasp. The simple gesture recaptured on the stalactive transmission to the council resonates with symbolic power. In the council chamber, several delegates visibly react. The Arcturian Chancellor's crystalline form pulses with blue-white light. Most unexpected, she whispers. The child facilitates connection between potential adversaries. A juvenile human displaying peacekeeping instincts, notes the ancient delegate. Our historical records failed to document this behavioral capacity. Counselor Zethrax watches the transmission intently. After a moment of consideration, he opens a communication channel to the rapid response fleet already en route to Earth. Maintain position at the outer system boundary, he orders. Do not cross Earth's orbital line until further instructed. Sullivan doesn't pull his hand away from Luna's grasp immediately. When he does, his expression has shifted from outright hostility to wary consideration. You understand our position, he says. We wake up after what feels like a day's sleep to discover 3,000 years have passed, and aliens imprisoned our entire species. I understand completely, Luna acknowledges, and I believe many on the council now recognize that the quarantine may have been a catastrophic moral error, one that could lead to the very conflict it was meant to prevent. Sullivan exchanges glances with Dr. Reed, who nods slightly. We propose a temporary alliance, Sullivan says. You help represent our case to your council. In return, we continue awakening our people under a guarantee of non-aggression. I accept, Luna responds without hesitation. As this agreement forms, revival pods across all preservation facilities continue their awakening sequences. The number of conscious humans climbs rapidly, hundreds becoming thousands by the hour. Each facility follows emergency protocols, arming and organizing the awakened for potential defense. In a secure communications room 3 levels below, Commander Hayes establishes encrypted connections with other military personnel in preservation facilities worldwide. The civilian leadership is attempting diplomatic contact. He informs the gathered faces on his display. We'll support their efforts but prepare for all contingencies. Trust but verify, agrees Colonel Winters from the Eurasian facility. What's the status of orbital defenses? Online and operational, Hayes confirms. If these aliens decide to finish what they started 3,000 years ago, they'll find Earth isn't defenseless anymore. The shadow contingency forms among human military leaders who distrust alien promises. They prepare for worst-case scenarios while Sullivan attempts diplomacy. In the Galactic Council chamber, Zethrax observes the multiple developments with growing concern. The unexpected diplomatic opening created by Luna and Sullivan offers hope, but the activation of Earth's defense grid registers as a potentially hostile action. The humans have reactivated their orbital defense network, reports a junior aide, displaying tactical data. A defensive measure or preparation for aggression? Questions the Vordak's representative, tentacles twisting anxiously. Both, potentially, Zethrex answers honestly. For 3,000 years, we've perpetuated our ancestors' solution without questioning its morality or consequences. Now, we face the possibility that the quarantine that seemed justified to prevent a war might itself become the cause of the very conflict we sought to avoid. On Earth, with each passing hour, thousands more humans awaken. Sullivan stands at an observation window overlooking rows of revival pods, watching as confused, frightened people emerge into a world 3 millennia removed from everything they knew. He turns to Luna, who stands beside him. "Can you convince your council that we deserve a place among the stars?" "I will try," Luna answers. But the question remains, can you control your species' justifiable anger? Sullivan's gaze returns to the awakening humans. That might be the harder task for both of us. Sullivan stares out at the awakening humans, the weight of responsibility settling firmly on his shoulders. "I'll do everything in my power to prevent violence," he says finally. "But I need your counsel to understand that 3,000 years of imprisonment demands justice, not just apologies." Luna nods solemnly. "I will convey your position. But remember, negotiations require compromise from all parties." 2 days later, Sullivan stands in what was once the facility's administrative wing, now transformed into a makeshift command center. Digital maps and holographic displays cover the walls, showing green indicators for awakened humans at preservation facilities worldwide. The number at 47,000 increases visibly as he watches, climbing by hundreds every hour. "Haven Prime," Sullivan says, tracing his finger along the outline of the North American facility. "That's what we're calling this place, Doctor." Our Coordination Center for Humanity's Revival. Dr. Reed approaches with a tablet displaying the latest reports. Revival rates are exceeding projections. At this pace, we'll hit 1 million within 4 days. Sullivan absorbs this information, watching as another cluster of green dots appears on the European continent. Any word from Hayes? Still maintaining the defense grid. Council vessels are keeping their distance. She hesitates. "They're demanding disarmament." "Let them demand," Sullivan replies, turning as Luna enters the room. The alien archaeologist's scales maintain a steady blue, a sign Sullivan has learned indicates focus and neutral emotional state. She carries several data tablets, moving with the fluid grace characteristic of her species even under pressure. "The Council has established a direct communication channel," Luna reports, setting up a translation interface at the central console. "They expect a response to Admiral Jorst's disarmament request." "And they'll keep expecting one," Sullivan saw Doctor. "Every hour we delay is another 1,000 humans awakened." Dr. Reed joins Luna at the console, the two forming an efficient team despite their different physiologies. "Over the past 48 hours, they've developed an unlikely partnership," Luna, explaining complex galactic political structures, while Alina helps contextualize human psychological responses to the awakening. "The Council is divided," Luna explains, displaying intercepted communications. "Not all members support the quarantine. Some are arguing for recognition of human rights." Sullivan studies the translated text. "That's something we can work with. Alina, start drafting diplomatic Doctor. Establish our requirements for formal recognition." "Already on it," Dr. Reed responds, her fingers moving rapidly across her tablet. "I'm incorporating psychological parameters to address the trauma of mass hibernation. We need acknowledgement of the harm caused." A young lieutenant interrupts, rushing in with urgent news. "Sir, we've got visitors. Military personnel from Berlin, 30 of them led by a Colonel Dr. Rington. They're demanding to speak with you." Sullivan exchanges a look with Dr. Reed. Was expecting this. The first challenge to centralized authority. "How do you want to handle it?" she asks quietly, transparently. "Have them brought to the conference room." Sullivan turns to Luna. "I need you there too. Let them see we're working with alien allies, not against them. The conference room hastily converted from a stasis monitoring station feels cramped when Colonel Harrington and his officers file in. Harrington stands at parade rest, his posture rigid and eyes cold as he assesses Sullivan. Though wearing the same revival clothing as everyone else, he's affixed military insignia to his collar. "Colonel Harrington," Sullivan begins, extending his hand. Harrington ignores the gesture. "Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan, I understand you've assumed command of our revival operations." "Coordinating, not commanding," Sullivan corrects. "We're establishing communication between facilities while negotiating with the Galactic Council." Negotiating. Harrington's gaze shifts to Luna. "With the same species that imprisoned us. They should be answering for war crimes, not receiving diplomatic courtesy." Several of Harrington's officers nod in agreement, their hands resting noticeably close to their weapons. Sullivan maintains eye contact with Harrington. "Colonel, what's your proposed alternative? We have 4,000 to 7,000 awakened humans against a galactic civilization with technology 3,000 years more advanced than ours." "Commander Hayes has activated our defense grid," Harrington counters. "We have leverage." "A temporary advantage at best," Luna interjects. "The Council already has a second fleet preparing to depart Proxima Centauri." Harrington's eyes narrow. "And we're supposed to trust your information. For Aldiari, no, you're feeding us lies while your people prepare to finish what they started." Dr. Reed steps forward. "Colonel, Luna risked her life to protect a human child during first contact. She's been transparent with all Council communications. Without her insights, we'd be operating blind." The tension in the room thickens as Harrington weighs his response. Finally, he speaks. "My team will establish a secondary command post in the Eastern Wing. We'll coordinate with your operation but maintain independent tactical capability. I want daily briefings on all diplomatic exchanges." Sullivan recognizes the compromise for what it is: Harrington establishing his authority while avoiding outright confrontation. "Agreed. We need unity now more than ever, Colonel." After Harrington and his team depart, as Dr. Ivan exhales slowly. "That could have gone worse." "He'll be watching for any sign of weakness," Dr. Reed observes. "Let him watch," Sullivan replies. "As long as he's not actively undermining our position with the Council." A soft alert sounds from Luna's communication device. Her scales briefly flash yellow with surprise before returning to blue. "What is it?" Sullivan asks. "A private message from Counselor Zethrax," she says, studying the encrypted text. "He sent historical records classified information about the original quarantine decision." Her forefingered hand trembles slightly. "Sullivan, this changes everything. The quarantine wasn't unanimous. Several species argued against it, predicting it would eventually lead to dangerous conflict." Sullivan leans forward. "Evidence of dissent within the Council from the beginning." Luna nods. "These records were purged officially, but Zethrax's family preserved them. This is leverage, Nathan proof that even 3 millennia ago, some Council members recognized the moral bankruptcy of their actions." "Forward everything to Eleanor," Sullivan directs. "We need to incorporate this into our diplomatic approach immediately." As Luna transmits the data, another alert sounds. Thighs 1 FR Doctor, the facility's security system. Sullivan taps the console, bringing up a video feed from the medical wing. Dr. Sofia Martinez moves efficiently between stasis revival pods, her lab coat stained with sweat as she checks vital signs on a patient with mottled, grayish skinclear signs of cellular degradation. 5% of revivals show similar sim. Dr. MS, their bodies imperfectly preserved over the millennia. Increase the regenerative compound to 50 milligrams, Dr. Martinez instructs a nurse. And P. Dr. another round of stem cell injections. Sullivan watches with concern. "How bad is it?" "Martinez is performing miracles," Dr. Reed answers. Recovery rates are exceeding all Prylorian medical predictions, but she needs more equipment, more personnel. Prioritize medical revival sequences, Sullivan decides. Get her every specialist we can find in the database. A small figure enters the frame, Mia, carrying water to the medical staff. The child has become a fixture in Haven Prime, moving between departments with curious freedom. Sullivan watches Doctor. She stops to hold the hand of a partially revived woman, speaking soft words of encouragement. She's become our unofficial ambassador, Dr. Reed says with a slight smile. More effective than any of us, Sullivan agrees. Where's she stationed now? She stays near Luna during diplomatic calls. The council representatives seem disarmed by her questions. Sullivan nods thoughtfully. Keep her involved. Her perspective cuts through the politics. Another alert sounds. Thighs one from the tactical display. Sullivan's expression hardens as Doctor reads the incoming data. Hayes has activated something in Australia, he says grimly. Energy signatures consistent with antimatter production. Dr. Reed's eyes widen. That's a major escalation. One I didn't authorize. Sullivan checks the communication log, and he deliberately kept it off our shared channels. Luna approaches, her scales shifting slightly toward purple concern. The council will detect this activity. It undermines our diplomatic position. I know. Sullivan activates a secure communication line. Connect me to Commander Hayes, Priority Alpha. He turns to Luna and Alina. I need options. If Hayes has just started an arms race, we need to know how to de-escalate without appearing weak. As the system attempts to connect with Hayes, another alert flashes on the main. Displays is one, causing Luna's scales to pale dramatically. Second Council fleet detected departing Proxima Centauri, she translates, reading the intercepted communication. Nathan, they're carrying planet cracker weapons. Sullivan's expression remains steady, but his fist clenches as he grips the console edge. Estimated arrival time. 7 days, Luna whispers. The command center falls silent as the implications sink in. 7 days to secure humanity's recognition or prepare for extinction. Sullivan straightens his shoulders, already calculating their next move. Alina, gather our diplomatic team. Luna, IDRED everything Zethrax sent you organized into a formal presentation. His voice remains level despite the existential threat looming over Earth. And get me Dr. Marcus Webb from Xenotech Research. I heard he's made progress on understanding the quarantine technology. As his team disperses to their tasks, Sullivan returns his gaze to the global display, where the count of awakened humans continues its steady climb. Soon, too many would be awake to ever force back into hibernation. Humanity's fate would be determined not by council decree, but by the decisions made in the coming week. The communication system chimes. Commander Hayes on Secure Channel 1, announces the automated system. Sullivan takes a deep breath and activates the connection. The next few minutes would shape humanity's strategic position and, potentially, its survival. The communication link with Hayes crackles with static before his face appears on screen, lips pursed in rigid defiance. Sullivan, he acknowledges curtly, I see you've detected our energy signatures. Antimatter production wasn't part of our agreed protocols, Sullivan says, keeping his voice level. You've escalated without authorization. Hayes leans forward. Authorization? From whom? Last I checked, humanity doesn't have a central authority yet. I'm securing our position. You're undermining our diplomatic efforts, Sullivan counters. The council will view this as confirmation of their worst fears about us. Hayes' laugh is harsh. Diplomacy, while they position planet crackers, I'm giving us options when your alien friends' pleasant conversations inevitably fail. Sullivan ends the call with a sharp tap, turning to find Luna watching him, her scales now shifting toward a deep purple color of deep concern. He's right about one thing, Sullivan admits. We need a unified human voice. By the 5th day, Haven Prime transforms. The former monitoring station becomes the nexus of humanity's revival efforts as the awakened population surpasses 5 million. Sullivan walks through the repurposed assembly hall, watching facility representatives from DRIX continents settle into their seats at circular tables beneath bright fluorescent lights. The first meeting of the Global Coordination Council will come to order, Dr. Reed announces, standing at Sullivan's side. Her tablet displays the agenda they'd worked through the night to prepare. Sullivan surveys the room. Each of you represents a significant revival center. Together, we must formulate a unified response to the Council fleet approaching Earth. Colonel Harrington sits erect and rigid at the military table, his earlier hostility reprimanded with grudging respect. Sullivan, my reconnaissance teams report instability at outer revival zones. We need coordinated security protocols. Agreed, Sullivan nods. Your experience is invaluable. I'd like you to establish a global defense network focused on protecting our people, not provoking the Council. Harrington's expression remains guarded, but he nods. I can coordinate with facility commanders. We'll establish perimeter security around major revival centers. Sullivan notices how Harrington's demeanor has shifted. The man had witnessed Luna's tireless work translating Dr. Unsil communications, her risk-taking to secure diplomatic channels. More importantly, he'd seen the results 3 previously silent Council species now advocating for humanity. Dr. Marcus Webb, Sullivan continues, turning to a wiry man with salt and pepper hair. Your report on the quarantine technology. Webb stands, activating a holographic display. We've identified the system created to maintain our hibernation. More importantly, we discovered it can be reconfigured into a planetary defense shield. Murmurs spread through the assembly as Webb displays schematics of control nodes located across the planet. We need Dr. Eames at nodes in former China, Brazil, and Russ Dr. Webb explains. The shield technology exists, but reconnecting these systems after 3 millennia won't be simple. Sullivan turns to Dr. Reed. Eleanor, form a scientific task force. Work with Dr. Webb to implement this shield. As the meeting progresses, Sullivan watches the dynamics unfold, scientists debating technical challenges, medical personnel sharing treatment protocols, military officers mapping security zones. This is humanity rebuilding itself, finding its collective voice after 3,000 years of silence. The following morning, Sullivan reviews the long-range sensor data with Luna. 23 warships from the Proxima Centauri fleet appear as ominous red indicators on the display. Admiral Krevak commands this fleet, Luna explains, her voice tight. He's known for efficient planetary sterilization operations. Sullivan studies her. You know him. By reputation, he executed containment protocols in the Ori Doctor cluster after the Varrock Rebellion. Luna's scales darken. 3 habitable worlds Doctor dared sterile. A junior officer interrupts, approaching with urgent news. Sir, the child Maish's been taken to medical. Dr. Martinez says it's serious. Sullivan and Luna hurry to the medical wing, finding chaos as Dr. Martinez works frantically over Mia's small form. The child's skin has taken on a grayish pallor, her breathing shallow and labored. Revival cascade failure, Martinez explains without looking up. Her cellular regeneration is breaking down. I've seen it in other patients, but her case is accelerating rapidly. Luna steps forward, scales shifting between worried purple and determined green. I recognize these symptoms. Prilorian medical technology can treat this. We don't have Prilorian technology, Martinez points out sharply. Luna straightens. Not yet, but we can request it. She turns to Sullivan. Nathan, I need to contact Admiral Jorst's fleet directly. The Council fleet, Sullivan asks, surprised. They're maintaining quarantine. Jorst respects medical necessity, Luna insists. And this, she gestures to Mia, transcends politics. Sullivan weighs the risks, watching Mia struggle for each breath. the child who'd connected with Luna who'd become a symbol of humanity's future. Do it. Luna moves to a communication console, transmitting on emergency frequencies. Minutes stretch into an hour as they wait, Martinez fighting to stabilize Mia's condition. Finally, the console chimes. Admiral Jorst appears on screen, his expression stern. Archaeologist Luna, he acknowledges. This communication violates quarantine protocols. Luna speaks rapidly in her native language, the translator converting her words to human speech. Admiral, I invoke emergency medical exception CS-473. A human child faces death from revival complications. Jorst's compound eyes narrow. You risk censure from the Council for this request. I accept that risk, Luna replies without hesitation. After a moment's consideration, Jorst nods. A medical shuttle will be dispatched with required supplies and specialists. Coordinates only, no further communication. The screen goes dark. Luna turns to Sullivan, her scales showing relief. He's sending help. For a child, Sullivan notes. There's still basic decency in the Council after all. T-Doctor, Dracovian medical specialists arrive 6 hours later, their shuttle touching down outside Haven Prime. Sullivan leads a small delegation to meet them, watching as 2 tall, scaled figures emerge carrying specialized equipment. Doctor. Martinez wastes no time in formality, leading the Dracovians directly to Mia's bedside. They work in efficient silence, their 6-fingered hands moving with precision as they administer treatments and adjust equipment settings. The child's cellular degradation follows a pattern we've observed in imperfect stasis fields, the lead Dracovian explains to Martinez. This enzyme compound should stabilize the decay. Sullivan observes from the doorway as alien and human medical personnel establish an impromptu collaboration. What begins as a T-Doctor, meant for one child, evolves into a broader exchange of medical knowledge at Dracovians, sharing techniques for revival stabilization, while Martinez offers insights on human physiology. We're transmitting this THR doctor out the facilities, Dr. Reed tells him, indicating cameras capturing the medical cooperation. And Luna ensured it's being broadcast to the Council. Sullivan nods, a powerful message. Nathan. Luna approaches, her scales a calmer blue now. Dr. Webb requests your presence. They've activated the Asian control node. Sullivan follows her to the command center, where Webb's face fills the main screen, his expression triumphant despite obvious exhaustion. It works, Webb announces. The shield technology responds to our commands. We had to adapt Prilorian power cores to the ancient interfaces, but the system is online. Before Sullivan can respond, alarms sound throughout the command center. A tactical officer calls out, Sir, energy spike detected from the Proxima Centauri fleet. They've increased speed dramatically. Luna analyzes the data, her scales paling. Admiral Krevak has seen the shield activation. He's accelerated his timeline of the fleet will reach Earth in 3 days. Sullivan makes an immediate decision. Halt all new revivals. Redirect power to the shield project. He turns to Webb. How quickly can you bring the entire system online? With all resources, possibly 7 to 2 hours, Webb answers, but it will be close. As Sullivan prepares to respond, another alert sounds, thighs one from Australia. His blood runs cold as he reads the data. Hayes is activating his antimatter platforms, he says grimly. He's preparing to launch against Admiral Jorst's fleet. The command center falls silent. One wrong move now could ignite an interstellar war that humanity couldn't possibly win. Sullivan activates a secure channel to his former military colleague. Captain Morrison, I need your team in Australia immediately. Hayes has gone rogue. Captain Morrison, I need your team in Australia immediately. Hayes has gone rogue. Sullivan turns to Colonel Harrington. Can your security forces support Morrison? Harrington nods curtly. I've got 3 rapid response teams on standby. They can deploy within the hour. Do it, Sullivan orders. We need those platforms secured before Hayes triggers an interstellar incident. Luna moves closer, her scales shifting to a concerned orange hue. If Hayes launches against Jorst's fleet, the Council will unanimously authorize immediate sterilization protocols. No debate, no delay. Sullivan studies the tactical display, watching the red indicators of Krevak's approaching fleet. How much time do we have before they arrive? At current velocity, 4 days, Luna answers. But if they detect antimatter weapons activation, they'll accelerate their approach. Sullivan activates the command center's broadcast says, "Doctor. This is Director Sullivan to all revival facilities. We are implementing Crisis Protocol Alpha. All non-essential revivals are suspended. Focus all resources on stabilizing currently awakened individuals and securing critical infrastructure." He turns to Dr. Reed. "Eleanor, I need you coordinating with Webb on the shield technology. It's now our priority." As the command center erupts into organized activity, Sullivan catches Luna watching Mia's medical readouts on a nearby screen. The child's condition has stabilized, but her recovery remains fragile. "She'll pull through," Sullivan reassures Luna. Martinez says the Dracovian treatment is working. Luna's scales ripple with subtle blues. "The child connected with me somehow. She saw past what I am to who I am. That capacity for understanding is what your species offers the galaxy if you survive this crisis." Sullivan's reply is interrupted by an urgent alert. "Sir, incoming transmission from Captain Morrison. Operation status update." Dawn breaks over Haven Prime on the 8th day of humanity's awakening. Shafts of golden light filter through hastily constructed observation windows, casting long shadows across the command center. Sullivan stands before a circular holographic display showing Admiral Krevak's fleetno just 14 hours from Earth's 23 red dots, moving inexorably toward the blue sphere of humanity's home. The past 3 days have transformed the operation. Captain Morrison's team successfully secured Hayes' antimatter platforms, doctor-venting a catastrophic first strike against the Council fleet. Hayes himself remained doctor. Under guard, his expertise redirected toward defensive applications rather than offensive capabilities. Sullivan looks around at the key figures who have shaped humanity's response. Dr. Eleanor Reed analyzes data on her tablet. Colonel Harrington sent Dr. E's defensive positions, Dr. Webb monitors shield status, and Luna stands beside a recovering Mia, who sits in a medical hover chair. The child's small hand rests in Luna's forefingered grip, a symbol of unexpected connection between species. "The Brazilian and Russian nodes are online," Dr. Webb announces, his fingers dancing across a control panel. The shield can reach 60% capacity, enough to repel conventional attacks, but not the planet crackers on Krevak's command ship. Sullivan studies the tactical display, weighing options shaped by his military training and the past week's diplomatic efforts. And Zethrax's proposal. Luna's scales shimmer with cautious optimism. The Council vote stands at 58% in favor, 12% opposed, with the remainder abstaining. It's a majority, but Admiral Krevak has invoked military override protocol. He claims security concerns supersede diplomatic resolutions. So we either trust a political solution that Krevak might ignore, or we activate an incomplete shield that might provoke him into immediate attack, Sullivan summarizes, his voice steady despite the impossible choice. Colonel Harrington steps forward, his weathered face set. "Hayes' antimatter platforms are secure, but they remain our most potent defensive option. My tactical assessment suggests we should bring them online as a deterrent." Before Sullivan can respond, the command center's communication array activates. Counselor Zethrax's holographic form materializes, his normally composed demeanor showing signs of urgency. "Nathan Sullivan, I speak now not as a council representative, but as someone who recognizes the historical injustice perpetrated against your species, Zethrax begins. Admiral Krevak has cut communications with the Council. We believe he intends to carry out the sterilization regardless of our diplomatic progress. The command center erupts into strategic discussions. Military personnel advocate immediate shield activation while diplomatic staff argue for continued negotiation. Through the chaos, Mia's voice suddenly cuts through, small but clear. "Why don't we show them who we really are?" she asks. All eyes turn to the child, her innocence highlighting the fundamental question at the heart of the crisis. Sullivan kneels beside her hover chair. Doctor, do you mean, Mia? Luna said they put us to sleep because they were scared of us, but they don't really know us. Maybe we should show them. Sullivan exchanges glances with Luna, a moment of understanding passing between human and Prylorian. He straightens, decision crystallizing in his mind. Dr. Webb, prepare the shield systems but hold on activation. Luna, I need a direct channel to both fleets and a broadcast to the entire council. Within the hour, Sullivan stands before a hastily assembled broadcast array. Behind him stands a carefully chosen assembly of humanity's awakened achievements. Doctors treating patients, engineers repairing ancient systems, artists creating works to process their new reality, children learning in makeshift classrooms, and scientists collaborating on understanding galactic technology. The broadcast begins, transmitting simultaneously to Krevak's approaching fleet, Admiral Jorst's positioned forces, and the Galactic Council chambers. I, Dr. Nathan Sullivan, speaking on behalf of humanity, he begins. 3,000 years ago, your ancestors feared what humanity might become. Today, I offer you the opportunity to see who we actually are. The broadcast splits into multiple feeds showing simultaneous activities across Earth's revival centers. Dr. Martinez works alongside Dracovian medical personnel, treating hibernation complications. Engineers adapt Prylorian technology to Earth's deteriorated infrastructure. Community leaders organize food distribution and housing arrangements. We've awoken to find ourselves erased from history, our civilization paused, and our future threatened, Sullivan continues. We have every right to anger, yet in the past week, millions of humans have chosen cooperation over conflict, adaptation over aggression. The feed shifts to Hayes' Australian facility, where the antimatter platforms are being systematically dismantled under Captain Morrison's supervision. The weapons' power cores are repurposed to strengthen Revival Center's energy grids. As a demonstration of our commitment to peaceful coexistence, we are voluntarily dismantling our most powerful weapons, Sullivan explains. However, we will not surrender our right to exist. The planetary shield will remain an option as long as our extinction remains yours. On Admiral Krevak's command ship, the senior Dracovian officer watches with his four-member command staff. The dimly lit bridge falls silent as images from Earth stream in, showing humans handling their unprecedented situation with organization and restraint, rather than the chaotic violence predicted by historical models. Magnify Section 4 of the human transmission, Krevak orders his communications officer. The display zooms in on a rehabilitation center where awakened humans with mobility impairments help each other through physical therapy exercises, demonstrating cooperation and community support. Krevak's secondary heart rate increase, Dracovian physiological response to cognitive dissonance. The reality contradicts everything he's been taught about humans. Before he can process this internal conflict, his tactical officer interrupts. Admiral, we're detecting new vessels approaching Earth from 3 vectors. Configuration matches Volarian, Telsian, and Mora diplomatic ships. The neutral observer species have positioned their vessels between Krevak's fleet and Earth in a clear message of diplomatic intervention. Simultaneously, Luna receives a priority transmission from Counselor Zethrax. The Council has invoked the unanimous crisis protocol, Luna announces, her scales shifting to bright blue. It requires a 90% majority to authorize military action against a sentient species. Krevak's authorization has been officially revoked. On the Dracovian command ship, Admiral Krevak receives the Council's order to stand down. After a moment of tense silence, he signals his navigator. "Bring us into high Earth orbit," he orders. Standard diplomatic approach pattern. Back in Haven Prime, Sullivan's broadcast continues, now addressing both fleets directly. "We propose a new path forward. Earth will maintain its defensive capabilities while opening diplomatic relations with all willing Council species. We request reparations in the form of technological and cultural exchange to help us rebuild what was lost. In return, we offer what humanity has always excelled at: doctor, adaptation, and perspective unconstrained by tradition." The command center erupts into cautious celebration as sensors confirm Krevak's fleet decelerating into a non-aggressive approach vector. Colonel Harrington clasps Sullivan's shoulder in "Doctor, Mission of the STR Doctor, JIC victory achieved without firing a shot." Dr. Reed and Dr. Webb embrace, their scientific cooperation having provided the shield option that made negotiation possible. 12 hours later, a historic meeting takes place in a neutral facility constructed in Earth's orbit. Sullivan leads a human delegation including Dr. Reed, Colonel Harrington, Dr. Webb, and Mia, whose interaction with Luna sparked the first diplomatic breakthrough. They meet with representatives from the Council, including Zethrax, Admiral Jorst, and most surprisingly, Admiral Krevak himself. The orbital conference room features a circular table with representatives from 8 specieshumans taking their place as equals for the first time in galactic politics. Transparent walls provide a stunning view of Earth below, its blue-green surface showing signs of natural recovery after 3 millennia without industrial human presence. The Council recognizes humanity's right to self-commitment, Zethrax announces formally, placing an ancient Earth artifact on the table, a preserved United Nations flag recovered from a museum during the original quarantine. "We acknowledge the moral failure of our predecessors and seek to establish a new relationship based on mutual respect." Admiral Krevak speaks next. "As the military commander tasked with enforcing the quarantine, I formally recognize its termination. Dracovian forces will establish a protective perimeter around this system, not to contain humanity, but to protect your recovery from opportunistic elements while you rebuild." Sullivan accepts these offerings with diplomatic grace, but adds firm conditions. "Humanity requires complete access to Council historical and technological archives. We need to understand what we've missed and how the galaxy has developed in our absence. Additionally, we want representatives on all Council bodies that make decisions affecting Earth or human interests." The negotiations continue for hours, establishing frameworks for humanity's reintegration into galactic society. Terms include technological exchange programs, cultural rehabilitation projects, and comprehensive reparations for the unjust quarantine. The resulting document, called the Awakening Accord, creates a 5-year transition period during which humans will rebuild their civilization with Council assistance, while gradually expanding their presence beyond Earth. Sullivan watches as the document is formalized, each species representative adding their biometric signature to the agreement. When his turn comes, he pauses, considering the weight of what he's about to sign. This document will shape humanity's future for generations to come. "Is something wrong, Director Sullivan?" Zethrax inquires. "No," Sullivan replies, pressing his thumb to the scanner. "Just appreciating the significance of this moment. 3,000 years ago, humanity stood at a crossroads. Today, we begin a journey toward a destination none of us could have imagined." As the ceremony concludes, Admiral Krevak approaches Sullivan privately. The Dracovian towers over him, compound eyes gleaming in the station's artificial light. "Your species has surprised me, Sullivan," Krevek admits. "Our historical records painted humans as aggressive, unpredictable. Yet in crisis, you chose restraint when aggression was justified." Sullivan studies the alien commander. "Perhaps your records were incomplete. Humans are complex, capable of both great violence and remarkable compassion. The Council judged us on our capacity for the former while ignoring our potential for the latter." Krevek's secondary breathing slits contract, a sign of consideration in Dracovian physiology. "I would learn more about your species. With your permission, I request a cultural exchange officer aboard my command ship." "Granted," Sullivan nods. "And I'd appreciate a Dracovian liaison at Haven Prime. There's much we can learn from each other." As the delegations prepare to depart, Luna finds Sullivan at the observation window, watching Earth rotate beneath them. "What are you thinking?" she asks, her scales a contemplative blue. Sullivan gestures toward the planet. "1 month ago, I was just another sleeping human. Now I've helped negotiate humanity's place in galactic society. It's a responsibility I never asked for." "Yet you've handled it admirably," Luna observes. "The Council sees that. It's why they're willing to trust your leadership during the transition." Sullivan turns from the window. "The transition is just beginning. Hayes isn't the only human who believes we should take a more aggressive SDRCE, and I suspect Krevek isn't the only Council member who remains suspicious of us." Luna's scales shift to a determined green, which is why the cultural exchange programs are essential. "Understanding dissolves fear and creates opportunity," Sullivan adds. "The hibernation technology that kept us asleep could revolutionize long-distance space travel. Dr. Webb is already adapting it for exploration vessels." DRIR conversation is interrupted as Mia approaches in her hover chair, now decorated with colorful drawings and alien script gifts from the Council representatives impressed by her simple wisdom. "Are we going to visit their planets now?" she asks, looking up at Sullivan with unrestrained curiosity. "Soon," he promises. "Very soon." As they return to the main chamber, Dr. Reed catches Sullivan's attention. The first transport ships are arriving with technological specialists, and the Council has approved our request for educational vessels to help accelerate our reintegration. Sullivan watches through the observation window as sleek alien she Doctor approach Earth's orbit, not as enforcers of quarantine but as partners in humanity's revival. The galaxy had expected humanity's awakening to bring chaos. Instead, it had created an unprecedented opportunity for cooperation between civilizations separated by history and misunderstanding. "Director Sullivan," a communication officer calls. "Priority message from Haven Prime. Dr. Martinez reports the medical protocols shared by the Dracovians have reduced revival complications by 70%. We can safely increase the awakening rate." Sullivan exchad Dr. S glances with Luna, seeing his own cautious optimism reflected in her shifting scales. The journey ahead would be complex, filled with challenges neither humans nor the Council species had anticipated. But for the first time since awakening, the path forward seemed clear: not isolation, not conflict, but engagement with a galaxy that had feared humanity without truly knowing it. "Tell Dr. Martinez to proceed," Sullivan orders. "It's time to wake up the rest of humanity."